Life is full of waiting periods. There are those times when it seems like nothing is happening. There are those times when it seems that you are stagnant. There are those times when it feels as if you are not moving forward. There are those times when it feels that you don't even know what is happening around you. But today I want to remind you that there is a reason for that delay. Just because something hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't ever happen. I know now we are living in microwave generation. We are living in a life of instant noodles, 2-minute noodles. We want it now. Everything has to happen now. It has to be right now. We want to be prosperous right now. We want to have money right now. People want to be known everywhere. They want to become celebrities right now. They want to buy a house right now. They want to get that job right now. With all these, people want instant results. They want instant noodles. They want instant periods. They want things to be done instantaneously. Nobody wants to wait. Nobody wants to experience any delays. Nobody wants to be prepared for that job. Nobody wants to get prepared for that position. People want it now. It has to be now. And that's why we have a high increase in crimes. We have so many stories of depressions, anxiety, and even people committing suicide. Nobody wants to get prepared. Nobody wants to wait for their own turn. Everybody wants to be treated first. Have you ever waited on God? Have you ever stayed up to a point and then you started wondering, why am I experiencing this delay? There are moments in life when it seems like God's promises are taking longer than expected to come to fruition. You've prayed, oh yes, you've planned, wow, you've worked hard, and yet there are no immediate results that are coming to you your way. It's in these moments that you might begin to doubt. It's these periods that you might begin to feel that God has forgotten you. You feel that God has abandoned you. You feel that God is still sleeping, is not awake, and you feel that people are going to ask you, where is your God? But I want to remind you today that there is a reason for that delay. That delay is not denial. Just because what you're expecting hasn't really come to you does not mean it wouldn't really come. So I want to encourage you that God's delays are not denials in any way. Instead, they are often part of God's divine plans and orchestrations upon your life. I know there are times when we cause our own delays. There are times when you have to wake up, stand up, and go through that exercise to remain fit. But hey, no, you want to sleep. You're causing those delays. There are times when you have to stand and study, sit and study. There are times when you have to burn the candles at both ends for you to get that degree, for you to get that promotion. But because you're lazy, because you don't want to do it, because you feel tired, because there are other things that you want to do, those could be caused. These are delays that you might be causing to yourself. But I want to tell you ultimately that there is a reason for the delay. Those divine delays in your life are coming because of a reason. There must be a purpose. There must be something greater that is coming your way. Because God's timing is always perfect. Even when it doesn't align with your expectations, but His timings are perfect. His timings are for a reason. His timings are there for your own good. And that's why Ecclesiastes in chapter 3 tells us that God makes everything beautiful in His time. When it is time for it, it's going to be beautiful when it comes from God. The divine timing of God is not bound by our clocks. It's not bound by our calendars. It doesn't depend on our plans. It doesn't depend on what we have already put in place. God sees the end from the beginning, and God coordinates everything according to His perfect will. Your life is according to God's perfect will. I know know, with all these waiting periods we experience, it looks as if nothing is happening. You've done everything you can do. There is no immediate result coming your way. Those moments you begin to doubt the existence of God. You begin to feel that maybe God has forgotten you. But hey man, that delay is not denial. There's a reason why that has not happened. And that's why Prophet Isaiah in chapter 55 reminds us that God's ways are higher, always higher than our ways. And God's thoughts are higher than our thoughts. What may seem like a delay to you could be God's perfect timing. It could be God's own timing in his own eyes. 1,000 years might just be 1 minute in God's eyes. You've seen it happening. It hasn't happened for so many years. It might just be just a second in God's eyes. And when it comes to pass, when you experience the fullness of God's existence in your life, you're going to see that there's a massive change from what you've been experiencing regarding the delays. So God's perspective on time is different from yours. God sees the beginning. He knows what you are going through. He knows what you are expecting, and God is always there for you. So what in any way, what you perceive as a delay might be God setting the stage for something greater in your life. You know, personally, I love farming. Growing up in Africa, I love going to the farm. I love planting things. I love to see them grow. I tend them, the yams. You tend them, you plant, guide the trunks and guide them as they continues to grow. You have the cassava, they have the corn and so on. So I want you to think about a farmer planting seeds. Let's take, for instance, the corn seed. Here in the UK, I had a garden that was so big, I had to split it into two. One part, I used it to plant tomatoes, onions, and corn. So if a farmer goes to the farm to plant a seed, let's say, for instance, the corn, he plant the corn. After the seeds are sown, there's a period where nothing seems to be happening. But beneath the surface, inside the ground, inside the soil, the seeds are taking root. They are preparing to sprout at the right time. At this period, during this time, for instance, the corn seed, it takes about 4 days before it comes out. The seedling starts coming out before it germinates. Within this period, the farmer doesn't panic because he understands the process and he trusts the timing. So within that 4 days, the seed will absorb moisture, absorb water, and then with the warmth that comes from the soil, then with the air also, with the aeration, you see that seedling will start springing up into a plant. And then you see the corn plant growing. In Genesis chapter 17, God promised Abraham that he would have a son and be the father of many nations. The fulfillment of this promise took about 25 years. Despite that long wait, God's promises were fulfilled at the perfect time for Abraham. And his wife gave birth to Isaac in their old age, after 25 whole years where they've received this promise. The delay was not a denial, but it was actually a test of faith and a preparation for a miraculous testimony. And in the end, Abraham today is known worldwide as the father of all nations. Joseph is also another great experience or great example of a reason for delays in our lives. Joseph's dreams were that of greatness. They were delayed, before he became that great. He was delayed for more than 13 years before he was set free and put on that throne as the second in command in the land of Egypt. Before then, he was delayed by betrayals. He was taken to slavery. He was imprisoned and so on. But these delays were steps in God's plan to position him as a leader. When you face delays, your response and your attitude are very crucial. Do you become discouraged? Or do you trust God more deeply? King David, we know about the story of David. When he was a teenager, he was anointed to become the king of Israel by Samuel. It was then that he faced Goliath. He was banished by Saul. There were many attempts by Saul to kill him. He hid in the desert. He lived on the run. He was forced even out of the nation where he had already been anointed to be king of. He fought so many battles, but you know what I'm telling you today is that it was nearly 15 years between the time David was anointed king and the actual date he became the king of Israel. But you know what? He was tested so that God could convert him from just being a shepherd into being a king. So when God puts a dream in your heart, you undergo testing. You undergo a process. You undergo preparation period. So most times, the greater the dream, the greater the test. You know, God uses those tests to prove your character, to make sure that you wouldn't waste the dream He has already planted into you. God knows when you're ready for that woman. God knows when you're ready for the man. God knows when you're ready to get married. God knows when it's the right time to give you a fruit of the womb. God knows when the right time it is for you to drive a car. God knows when the right time it will be for you to own a house. So I want to encourage you to trust God. Trust in Him to steer you towards that dream. Because if God has given you a dream, I want to encourage you to be prepared, to be tested, and for you to wait until the fulfillment of that dream. Those God's plans upon your life will definitely come to fruition. They will materialize. Hey, my brothers and sisters, there's a miracle inside of you waiting to come out. But it will take some perseverance. It will take some character building to make that happen. It wouldn't happen overnight. It's going to be a process. One purpose of the delays you experience in your life is that God wants to refine your character. Delays will teach you patience. It's going to teach you perseverance, and it will also teach you to trust in God. That's why in his book to Romans chapter 5, Paul tells us that suffering produces perseverance, and perseverance will lead to character, and character will bring about hope. You know, when you wait, it forces you to rely on God rather than on your own understanding. And Proverbs chapter 3 encourages us to trust in the Lord with all our heart and lean not on our own understanding. Many times people want to lean on their own understanding. Many times we want to do it our own way. Because even Abraham, with the promises he got from God, Sarah wanted Abraham to do it in his own way. They wanted to do it in their own way. Hence, Sarah brought Hagar to go with Abraham, and then they produced a son called Ishmael. But that was not God's plan. That was not God's plan for them in their lives. Sometimes when we take things and try to do it on our own way without waiting for the fruition of God's plan, without waiting for God's promises to come or mature in our lives, we often make mistakes. So I want to encourage you, my brothers and sisters, focus on God's plan upon your life. Get your character development. Refine your character within this period of wait. Increase your faith while you experiencing the delay, while you think that it's not yet coming to you. Get ready for the blessing, my brothers and sisters. Sometimes we're not ready for what God has for us. Sometimes we're not prepared for what God has for us, because the delay is God's way of preparing us to handle the blessing of that responsibility that is coming your way. Imagine me that have a 16-year-old. Imagine giving him keys to a brand new car. I get that car for him and I give it to him. You know, hey, this 16-year-old is not yet ready to drive a car because he's not prepared. In the UK, you have to write your driving theory test. You must pass that. Then you go through the technical or the practical trainings. After that, then you go for the practical test. You must get all of these together. You must pass each and every one of these steps to get ready for you to become a driver. So if I give my 16-year-old boy who has not yet learned how to drive, who has not got any driving experience, yes, I know the car, he could see it as a blessing, but without the necessary preparations, it could be dangerous. He could cause harm to someone else, even to himself, or even destroy the car. You know, sometimes God's delays ensure that we are ready to receive what He has in store for us. You might think you're 35 years old, you're not yet married, 40 years old, you're not married. That delay could be for a reason. It could be that God is preparing you for something better. God is getting you prepared for what you're going to face or what you're going to experience when you get married. People get married at 16, 17, 18, 20, and they end up running away from that because they were not prepared. They were not ready for it. Some people become managers at a very tender age. They were not prepared for it. Some people can also become managers and heads of state, leaders, and so on at a later age. But if they're not prepared for it, they're not going to do well there. So there is a reason why this delay is happening to you, because God is preparing you. God is getting you ready. So I want to encourage you to trust in God, even in that delay. When you face delays, when things are not working as you think they should, when you feel that you should have gotten something and you haven't got it, that mortgage is still delayed, that credit card application is not coming forth, you've applied to so many roles that not nobody's inviting you for interviews, do not be discouraged. I want to encourage you to trust God more deeply. Trust God. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. In the midst of the delay, your feelings may lead you to doubt the existence of God, but your faith will act as an anchor that will hold you onto the assurance of God's promises. Waiting on God, I want to tell you, it's not a passive thing. You don't have to sit and say you're waiting. You don't have to just sit with your hand on your jaws and just stay doing nothing. It's not passive. It's an active process that involves prayers. It's an active process that involves seeking God's will. It's an active process that involves continuing to walk in obedience. And that's why the prophet Isaiah tells us in chapter 40 and says, "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." So even while you're waiting upon the Lord, you should continue to walk. You should continue to mount up with wings like eagles. You should continue to run and not be weary. You have to continue to be active while waiting. Are you believing God for a new job? Are you praying for healing? Are you believing God for the restoration of your health? Are you asking and praying fervently for a husband or a wife or a child? Are you praying for your business to bloom? Are you praying for you to be able to start up a business or to get a job? Are you praying for preparations to be promoted in your workplace? Are you also praying that you get that diploma or you get admission to a university? Are you praying for money today? Are you praying for a house? Whatever it is, I want you to stick with God. Don't give up, my brothers and sisters. Continue holding God in His words, and the results will surprise you. God does not waste your time. He's not a waster of time. He never promises and He fails to accomplish. He's always right on time. Brethren, if you are in a season of waiting, don't lose heart. Remember that God is faithful and His promises are true. Delay does not mean denial. There is a reason why you're experiencing this delay. There is a reason. God has not forgotten you. Whatever you're going through, God has not forgotten you. In fact, God is working all things together for your own good. What might seem like a delay is often God's way of preparing you for something greater. I want to encourage you to trust in God's timing. Hold fast to God's promises. and be encouraged that what God has promised will come to pass. My brothers and sisters, delay is not denial. It's rather divine preparation. God is preparing you for something greater. In the name of Jesus. Amen. God bless you.